Hello, and welcome back to Daily English Whisper. I'm Max. I'm very happy you are here today. Take a slow breath, relax. You do not need to rush. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to listen, repeat, and enjoy the process. Today's episode is very special because we are going to practice something that can completely change your daily English conversations. We are going to work with essential beginner questions. Simple questions, useful questions, questions you can use almost every day. Questions that help conversations start, questions that help conversations continue, questions that help you feel more confident when speaking English. And here is something interesting. Many beginners spend a lot of time learning answers, but they forget to learn questions. Think about that for a moment. A good question can create an entire conversation. A good question can help you make a friend. A good question can help you understand someone better. A good question can help you keep speaking even when your vocabulary is small. Maybe you have experienced this before. Someone speaks to you in English. You answer with one short sentence. Then silence arrives. You do not know what to say next. You feel nervous. You feel stuck. And maybe you think, my English is not good enough. But often the problem is not your English. The problem is that you do not know how to ask the next question. Today we are going to change that, because conversations are not built only with answers, they are built with curiosity. And curiosity starts with questions. Some learners believe they need thousands of words before they can have a conversation. That is not true. Others believe they need perfect grammar before speaking. That is also not true. Many real conversations happen with simple language. Very simple language. The secret is knowing how to keep the conversation moving. And that is our big idea today. Simple questions create bigger conversations. Let me say that again. Simple questions create bigger conversations. Remember that. Because throughout this episode, you will practice useful questions, improve your listening, and strengthen your speaking confidence one step at a time. And by the end, these questions will feel more natural inside your mind. Let's begin together. Before we start learning questions, let me ask you something. Why are questions so important? Think about a conversation. One person speaks. The other person responds. Then what happens? Usually, a question appears. Questions are the engine of conversation. Without questions, conversations stop. With questions, conversations grow. That is why practicing questions is one of the smartest things a beginner can do. And today, we will use shadowing to help these questions become automatic. Shadowing is simple. You listen, then you repeat. You hear the rhythm. You hear the pronunciation. Then you copy it. Little by little, English begins to feel more natural. So let's warm up together. Listen carefully. Then repeat. Ready? How are you today? Repeat. How are you today? Again. How are you today? Very good. Next. What are you doing? Repeat. What are you doing? Excellent. Next. Where are you from? Repeat. Where are you from? Good. Next. Can you help me? Repeat. Can you help me? Very nice. One more. What do you think? Repeat. What do you think? Again. What do you think? Excellent. Notice something. These questions are not difficult, but they are powerful because they appear everywhere. At work, at school, in stores, during travel, with friends, with neighbors, with new people. The goal today is not to learn complicated English. The goal is to become comfortable with useful English. And remember, you do not need to understand every word immediately. You do not need perfect pronunciation. You only need practice. Every repetition helps. Every sentence helps. Every question helps. That is how confidence grows. Now let's talk about the real challenge many beginners face when trying to have conversations. Why do many beginners struggle during conversations? Maybe your thoughts sound like this. I don't know what to ask. I can answer, but only with one word. I forget questions. I understand slowly. I get nervous. I run out of things to say. If that sounds familiar, you are not alone. These are very common problems. And the good news is that they can improve, because conversations are not magic. They are skills, and skills can be practiced. Think about someone learning to ride a bicycle. The first day feels difficult. The second day feels difficult. Then one day something changes. The movement becomes more natural. English works the same way. Today, I will give you a series of essential questions that can help you in many everyday situations. Questions for meeting people. Questions for daily life. Questions for opinions. Questions for experiences. Questions that help conversations continue naturally. And here is something important. You do not need 50 perfect questions every day. Sometimes one good question is enough. Imagine you are sitting next to someone on a train. Instead of staying silent, you ask, "Is this your first time here?" A conversation begins. Or imagine you are waiting for a class to start. You ask, "How long have you been studying English?" A conversation begins. Or maybe you are at a small market and someone is buying an unusual fruit. You ask, "Have you tried this before?" A conversation begins. Simple, natural, useful. That is exactly what we are building today. And if this episode is helping you already, please give the video a like. That helps more English learners find daily English whisper and practice with us. Stay with me, because we are about to start learning the first group of essential questions that can make everyday conversations much easier. Let's begin with our first group of essential questions. These are questions for meeting people and starting conversations. Many learners worry about starting a conversation. But the truth is that most conversations begin with very simple questions. Nothing complicated, nothing impressive. Just friendly curiosity. Let's practice together. Listen first. Then repeat. What's your name? Repeat. What's your name? Excellent. Next. Where are you from? Repeat. Where are you from? Again. Where are you from? Very good. Next. What do you do? Repeat. What do you do? Nice. Now imagine you are waiting for a workshop to begin. People are sitting quietly. Everyone is looking at their phones. You smile and ask, "Have you been here before?" Repeat. Have you been here before? Excellent. A simple question. A simple answer. A conversation starts. Another useful question. How did you hear about this place? Repeat. How did you hear about this place? Very nice. Maybe you are at a weekend art fair. Maybe you are at a photography class. Maybe you are visiting a local event. Questions like these help people relax. And here is something important. You do not need to ask many questions. One question can be enough. One question creates an answer. That answer creates another question. That question creates another answer. That is how conversations grow. Let's practice one more. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Repeat. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Again. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Excellent. Notice how this question can lead to many topics. Books, sports, music, cooking, travel, photography, gardening. Conversation becomes easier when you learn questions that open doors. And every time you use one of these questions, your confidence grows a little more. Keep going. You are doing great. Now let's move to another important group of questions. Questions about daily life. These questions appear everywhere. You can use them with friends, co-workers, classmates, neighbors, almost anyone. Let's practice. Listen carefully. Then repeat. How was your day? Repeat. How was your day? Very good. Simple, but powerful. People ask this question every day. Next. What are you working on? Repeat. What are you working on? Excellent. Maybe someone is fixing a bicycle, drawing something, working on a project, organizing boxes. This question creates conversation. Let's continue. What are your plans for the weekend? Repeat. What are your plans for the weekend? Very nice. Now imagine you are speaking with a co-worker on Friday afternoon. This question feels natural, comfortable, easy. Here is another one. Did anything interesting happen today? Repeat. Did anything interesting happen today? Excellent. This question is wonderful because people often enjoy telling stories. Small stories, funny stories, unexpected stories, a strange customer, a lost umbrella, a dog wearing sunglasses, something unusual. Conversation becomes memorable. Let's practice another useful question. What was the best part of your day? Repeat. What was the best part of your day? Excellent. Questions like this create positive conversations, and positive conversations are often easier to continue. Remember, you do not need perfect English. You do not need perfect grammar. You only need curiosity. Curiosity keeps conversations alive, and curiosity is something you already have. Now, let's continue with another very important group. Questions about opinions. These questions are excellent because almost everyone has opinions, and opinions create longer conversations. Let's practice. Listen first, then repeat. What do you think about that? Repeat. What do you think about that? Very good. This question works almost everywhere. Next. Do you agree? Repeat. Do you agree? Again. Do you agree? Excellent. Short, simple, useful. Now another question. Which one do you prefer? Repeat. Which one do you prefer? Very nice. People love comparing things. Tea or coffee, mountains or beaches, morning or evening, books or movies. Questions like this create natural conversation. Let's continue. What would you choose? Repeat. What would you choose? Excellent. Imagine someone shows you 2 travel destinations, or 2 designs, or 2 meals. This question keeps the conversation moving. Now let's practice another useful one. Why do you think that? Repeat. Why do you think that? Again. Why do you think that? Excellent. This is one of the most powerful questions in English because it invites people to explain more. And more explanation means more conversation. Now let's do a quick shadowing practice. I say, I think rainy days are relaxing. You ask, why do you think that? Repeat, why do you think that? Good. I say, I would choose the train instead of the plane. You ask, why do you think that? Repeat, why do you think that? Excellent. You are building a very useful skill, the skill of keeping conversations alive. And before we continue, I would love to hear from you. Leave a comment and tell me, which question from today's episode would you use first in a real conversation? And stay with me until the end, because the final group of questions may become the most useful ones in your daily English life. Let's continue with our next group of essential questions. These are questions about experiences. People love talking about experiences, places they have visited, things they have tried, interesting moments they remember. And the good news is that these questions are simple, very simple, but they can create long conversations. Let's practice together. Listen first, then repeat. Have you ever been there? Repeat. Have you ever been there? Excellent. This question works in many situations. A city, a museum, a park, a restaurant, a country, anywhere. Next, have you ever tried that? Repeat. Have you ever tried that? Very good. Imagine someone talks about a strange fruit, an unusual sport, a new hobby. This question fits perfectly. Now another useful one. What was it like? Repeat. What was it like? Excellent. This is one of the best conversation questions because it invites people to tell a story. And stories keep conversations interesting. Let's continue. What was your favorite part? Repeat. What was your favorite part? Very nice. People enjoy talking about their favorite things, favorite moments, favorite places, favorite memories. This question helps them share. Now one more. Would you do it again? Repeat. Would you do it again? Excellent. Imagine someone says, I spent 3 days learning how to make pottery. You can ask, would you do it again? A conversation continues. Or someone says, I slept in a glass cabin in the mountains. You ask, what was it like? Now the story becomes bigger. That is the power of good questions. Simple words, big conversations. And remember, you do not need to ask every question perfectly. You only need to ask. That is how confidence grows, question by question. Now let's learn our final group of essential questions. These are conversation-saving questions, questions that help when you do not know what to say next. Every learner needs these. Even advanced speakers use them, because no one always knows what to say. Let's begin. Listen carefully. Then repeat. Can you tell me more about that? Repeat. Can you tell me more about that? Excellent. This question is incredibly useful because it works almost everywhere. Someone talks about travel. You use it. Someone talks about work. You use it. Someone talks about a hobby. You use it. Very easy. Now another one. How did that happen? Repeat. How did that happen? Again. How did that happen? Very good. People often enjoy explaining events. This question invites a story. Let's continue. And then what happened? Repeat. And then what happened? Excellent. This may be one of the easiest ways to keep a conversation moving. Imagine someone says, I accidentally got on the wrong train. You ask, and then what happened? Now the story continues. Simple, natural, effective. Let's practice another one. Really? What happened next? Repeat. Really? What happened next? Excellent. Notice something. You do not need difficult vocabulary. You do not need long sentences. Sometimes a conversation grows because of a very short question. Now let's practice a small conversation. I say, last week I found an old photograph inside a library book. You ask, how did that happen? Repeat, how did that happen? Good. I say, the photo had a message written on the back. You ask, and then what happened? Repeat, and then what happened? Excellent. You are learning a very important skill. Not only speaking, not only listening, conversation, real conversation. And real conversation often grows from simple curiosity. And now we come to the end of today's practice. Let's take a moment to remember what we learned. Today, we practiced essential beginner questions. Questions for meeting people. Questions about daily life. Questions about opinions. Questions about experiences. And questions that help save a conversation when you are not sure what to say next. You may not remember all 50 questions immediately, and that is perfectly okay, because that is not the goal. The goal is familiarity. The goal is confidence. The goal is becoming comfortable asking questions in English. And here is the secret sentence I want you to remember. Good questions create good conversations. Let's say it together. Repeat after me. Good questions create good conversations. Again, good questions create good conversations. Excellent. Now, imagine your daily life. You meet someone new. You ask, "Where are you from?" A conversation begins. You hear about an interesting experience. You ask, "What was it like?" The conversation grows. Someone tells a surprising story. You ask, "And then what happened?" The conversation continues. One simple question, then another, then another. That is how many real conversations happen. Not through perfect English, not through advanced vocabulary, through curiosity, through listening, through asking. And the more you practice these questions, the more natural they will become. Eventually, you will not need to think so much. The questions will come automatically. That is when confidence starts to feel real. At Daily English Whisper, we are building that confidence together. One sentence, one question, one conversation at a time. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and continue learning with us. There are many more listening and shadowing practices waiting for you. And if speaking English feels difficult sometimes, remember this: you are improving. Every question you repeat today is helping your future conversations. Every minute of practice matters, and I am proud of you for showing up and doing the work. I'm Max. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep listening, keep repeating, keep asking questions, and I will see you again very soon here on Daily English Whisper.